Welcome to the Entre Pastors podcast on YouTube. This is a show that helps pastors think, act, and thrive as prosperous entrepreneurs. Well, hello there, and welcome to the Entre Pastors podcast on YouTube. Hey, my name is Jon Sanders. I'm one of the co-hosts of the show and super delighted to have you joining us today for this episode. We're going to talk about a really important conversation today. This is episode number 72, and we're going to tell you how you can create the best year ever. Notice I said create. Like, these are things we can do intentionally to end up somewhere on purpose. That's the big idea that you're going to hear myself and my co-host Les Hughes discussing in this show. How do you do some things intentionally on the front side of a brand new year that can almost guarantee that you end up in a much better place at the end of the year? Now, obviously, none of us can predict the future. We know that. But we are going to tell you in this podcast, and we're going to challenge you to set some specific, smart, written goals in 6 key areas of your life. We believe that if you do that, if you put your goals in writing and look ahead, you can end up somewhere on purpose. The sad reality is many people end up somewhere that they never intended to be. They just kind of drifted into that place. And so in this show, we're going to talk about the power of goal setting and how, as we roll into a brand new year here in 2023, you can create the best year, one of the best years you've ever had in your life. So we're delighted to have you joining us on the show. Without any further ado, let's get to the conversation that Les and I had recently about how to create the best year ever. Here we go. Rodecaster Pro. There we go. And go.
Welcome to the Entre Pastors podcast. This show helps pastors think, act, and thrive as prosperous entrepreneurs. And now, here are your hosts, Les Hughes and Jon Sanders.
Hello, everyone, and Happy New Year from Entre Pastors. My name is Jon Sanders. I'm one of the co-hosts of the show here with my friend and co-host, Les Hughes. Les, Happy New Year, my man.
Happy New Year, Jon, man. Great to see you. I hope everything was festive around the Sanders house the last couple of weeks.
Yep, it's been a good Christmas, good holiday season. I don't know about you, Les, but I love the new year. I really do. I'm not just saying that. I love when the calendar turns to a brand new year. There's something about a fresh start, a clean slate, and just a new year that gets me excited thinking about the future and all the potential that 2023 holds. What about you?
I agree 100%. You know what? When I was much younger, I used to think that when the century turned that I would be an old man because I was going to be 40. You know, it was always easy to do the math, which is a good thing for me because I was born in 60. So it was always pretty easy, you know, to kind of do the math. And I thought, man, if I make it to year 2000, you know, Y2K, that's going to be something. That's ancient history now.
A long time ago.
Here we go. Yeah.
There was a season in my life where when you made a joke about 40, I would have said, well, you are old, but I've outgrown that ability to joke about that since I'm over that now. So
no, but it's all good. I'm excited for this year. I know a lot of people that are listening to us are the same way. That's just our tribe. And I'm looking forward to everything that's going to unfold.
Likewise. Well, hey, man, today, this is episode number 72, and we're going to have a conversation around how to make 2023 the best year ever. And some people listening may go, man, that just sounds like hype. But I don't think it is. Like, you could apply what we're getting ready to share today to any year. But since we're in 2023, why not make this the best year ever? And I want to start, Les, by sharing a quote I heard a long time ago. I think this came from Andy Stanley. As a matter of fact, he wrote a book called The Principle of the Path. Something's telling me it was in that book that I heard him say or read him say this. But the quote goes like this: everyone ends up somewhere, but some people end up there on purpose. And the thought behind that is a lot of people just end up somewhere in life, but they didn't get there on purpose. They kind of drifted to that place. They were not intentional. By the way, Les, this past week, I just preached a sermon, and as a prop on stage, I had 2 big poster boards on an easel and on different easels on different ends of the stage. But the word on one side was the word complacent, and the word on the other side was the word intentional. And I made this point that there is this strong current of complacency that pulls us in that direction toward being complacent. And the problem with that is we never drift anywhere healthy in our life. If we let ourselves go on autopilot and drift, we drift to unhealthy places. And so if you want to end up somewhere healthy, if you want to end up somewhere good, it's going to require moving against that current and moving in the direction of intentionality so that we end up somewhere on purpose. What say you to that?
Yeah, that's right. And, if I look at myself on December 31st and I think of where I find myself at the end of the year, or you could say right now we're recording this January the 4th. We could say January the 4th. So here's the truth is I'm where I am right now in large part. In fact, some would say totally because of the decisions that I've made that lead up to this point. Now, someone could push back and say, well, what about the providence of God? What about the things that other people did where you didn't have a say? How about those things? And I would say, yeah, but I did decide how I would respond to those things. So we're back to wherever I am, what my mindset is, what my attitude is, and what my habits are today. They're a direct result of decisions that I have made. And that's why it's really healthy to pause and to think about these things and to decide what habits am I going to start? What decisions am I going to make right now? And how am I going to respond to the things that happen that are even beyond my control? Because the thing is, John, life, some people see life as a roller coaster, it's got ups and downs, when in reality, it's more like a railroad track. You've got parallel things going on. There's always some good things going on, and there are always some challenging things going on. While we've been having this conversation, my wife just texted me and told me that a very good friend of ours just had a heart attack. I didn't expect that, and he didn't expect it when we got up this morning. But those things happen. I also know that they've just celebrated some wins in their family, big wins in their family. Those things happen concurrently.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned the word mindset a minute ago, because it's not just the actions we've taken that have gotten us to where we are. In large part, our actions stem from the thoughts that we think. So said differently, a lot of times we end up where we are because we thought ourselves into that result. Our results that we're experiencing today are the product of the thoughts that we thought yesterday or, for years or whatever the case may be. So with that thought in mind, we said last week that we were going to tell our audience this week how they could have the best year ever. And so how do we make 2023 the greatest year ever? Before we answer that question, I want to challenge our audience to really think about this for a minute, and feel free to put this podcast on pause if you need to. But what would have to happen if 12 months from now, you're looking over your shoulder going, seriously, guys, this was probably one of the best years of my life? What would have had to have happened over these last 12 months for that to be true? So I'm asking you to go out in the future a little bit and then look over your shoulder, look in the rearview mirror and look back and say, what would have to have taken place in the year 2023 for me to say, man, I ended up somewhere incredible? And then once you have kind of a vision for that, I want to challenge you with this thought. What if I told you that it's actually possible for you to make that decision right now of where you want to end up? And we can't guarantee 100% that you're going to get exactly there. Again, going to your railroad track metaphor, Les, the track sometimes takes us into some different places, and it's not always a straight line. And there is the providence of God, and God does step in and intervene and allows things into our life and brings things into our life. I get that. But what would it look like? And what if it's possible for you to actually look ahead and go, with God's help, this is where I'm going to end up. And now I'm going to put some things in place in my life and start taking some actions deliberately that will help get me to that place. I think it's possible. I know it's possible. And we want to encourage you with how you can do that today. So anything you want to add to that, Les, before we move on?
Let's go. Let's do it, because there are some measurable things that can be done to do exactly what you're talking about. So let's go for it.
All right. So Les, if I were to tell you and make the statement that this is a time of year that everyone's talking about New Year's resolutions, this and New Year's resolutions, that, and then what if John tells you, I hate New Year's resolutions. I think they're silly. And hate's a strong word, but I'm not a fan of New Year's resolutions. I think they're silly, and I don't think they work, and I don't think they're that powerful. What say you to that?
Well, I've got a friend that texted me the other day and said that he's going to open up a gym, and the membership is only going to be for like 2 days or a few days. And that's all you can join it for. And the key is you can join this thing, since most people are going to drop their memberships after a few weeks anyway, that you can join the membership, pay like for the first week or whatever it is. And then he shuts it down. And then people can say, not that they gave up on their resolution, but that the gym closed.
Well, we weren't planning on talking about this, but here's a story for you. I was just on a call today, and I'm gonna have to Google this and see where this is happening. But someone was telling me a gym out in New York put a big sign up saying, for all of you with New Year's resolutions, we don't want your lazy. And then there's a word that we can't say on the Entre Pastors podcast, and basically said, you're going to quit in 2 weeks, you're wasting our time, wasting your time. You'd be a better fit for Planet Fitness.
And it's not Planet. Yeah.
Planet Fitness, or what's the word?
Yeah, you're right. But it wasn't not Planet Fitness that put that ad out. It was their competitors.
No. It was a competitor. Yeah. Are you aware of this? Have you heard this?
Yeah.
For one, it's brilliant. And apparently they got all kinds of, pushback for their, fat shaming or whatever. But it's like, anyway, they're tapping into that reality of, New Year's resolutions don't work. And if that's all that's bringing you here is an inspiration of your intention, because that's all I've heard it said, Les, that a resolution, if it's not accompanied by planning and action, is nothing more than wishful thinking. Should say that again. A resolution, if it's not accompanied with good planning and action, is nothing more than wishful thinking. So that's why I'm not a fan of New Year's resolutions, because it's just
right. And you know what? This is not what this podcast is about. We'll do this at another time. But that company also is a great example of knowing who your people are, because they're okay. They're not trying to serve everyone. They've got a very specific group, and they're doing very, very well. And they don't need all the rest of them. And so anyway, that's not what we're talking about, but it is a good example of that.
Because how many people, and you said we're not talking about it, now I'm going to talk about it. How many people do you think hardcore like athletes and true gym rats were like, that's my gym.
They're all over it.
Gym. That's yeah. Mm-hmm. So we'll talk about that
right.
in another episode. So instead of New Year's resolutions, and this may be cliche to some, but it may be brand new, groundbreaking information to others. So I'm just going to go over it. It may be basic, but rather than New Year's resolutions, I want to introduce the concept of SMART goals, because I'm a fan of goals. I'm a fan of putting some SMART goals in place in your life. And SMART is an acronym. We'll run through these briefly, maybe talk about, why these matter. But let me just run through the acronym, and then Les, I'll let you riff on any of these that you like. But the S in SMART goals stands for specific. It's not good enough just to have a New Year's resolution that says, I want to get in better shape in 2023. I mean, what does that even mean? Like, you want to go from round to oval? Like, what does better shape mean? So specific makes you get specific, and that's what specific is. The M stands for measurable. Like, we can actually measure this. I want to lose 40 pounds in 2023. Well, we can measure that. Attainable is the A. It's attainable, meaning it's realistic. And let me pause here for just a minute to say, Les, have you ever heard the statement that we often far overestimate what we can accomplish in 12 months and far underestimate what we can accomplish in 5 years? You ever heard that?
Yes.
Is that true? Does that ring true with you?
It's absolutely true. Yeah.
I recognize my tendency to bite off a lot bigger chunks than I can really chew, and I set big goals for 12 months from now. And then I get a little disappointed if I don't hit them. But when I look back over my shoulder over the last 3, 4, 5 years, man, it's incredible to see the amount of growth and progress that I've made. So when we talk about something being attainable, give yourself permission to set realistic goals. Push yourself, dream, but don't go so big that it's not attainable.
And it's the principle of momentum. Like when you were a kid and in the playground trying to get that, whatever you call that thing that you spin around with all your friends on it, it takes a bit of effort, quite a bit of effort to get it going. But once it gets going, then the momentum takes over and it takes very little effort at all. And the same is true with any endeavor that takes a lot of momentum to get off the ground.
Yeah. The R in that acronym stands for relevant. And what this is referring to is you need to have a strong why behind your goal. So if your goal in our community, Les, we talk a lot to pastors about developing another stream of revenue. Bottom line, we want to help pastors overcome that narrative of the starving pastor. We're done with that narrative. We're done with that model. But it isn't just about saying, I want to double my income or triple my income in 2023. Why is that relevant to you? What does that make possible for you when you finally do have a more livable income and you can bless your family? Like, tap into that why, because if you don't have a strong why, you're going to lose sight of the what very quickly if you're not clear on why it is that you have this as a goal in the first place.
Another thing
jump in.
Another thing that having a strong why does is that it'll keep you from jumping on somebody else's goals. These need to be yours. And just because you see someone else do something and that might be fun, or that might bring into your life the same income stream that you think that they may have because of whatever it is that they start. But if you don't have a strong why, whenever it gets tough, you're not going to push through. You're not going to stay with it. You're not going to persist. But if your why is strong enough, you will not give up. You'll keep pressing forward, even though it may get hard.
That's good. I love that. The T stands for time bound. So it's not just this endless, we don't really know if we actually hit the goal because we gave ourselves until Jesus returns. It's you actually set a time limit on when will I attain this goal by. And so put all those together: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time bound. That's what we mean when we say SMART goals. So we're going to challenge you before this podcast is done to set some SMART goals in some key areas of your life. But I want to add one more to this acronym. It doesn't fit phonetically. That's a word I don't say very often in day to day, but it doesn't fit in the acronym. But here's the word. The word is written. That you put your goals in writing. It's been said, Les, I think this has been proven many times over, that people who set their goals in writing, who actually write their goals down, are far more likely to achieve them than people who just have some, list swirling around in their head of what they want to do.
That's right. Take it to another level. If you tell someone else, or when you tell someone else, that takes it to another level of accountability. You'll be more likely to see it through. And also, John, I'll just include a footnote here as well. You take any of these components of the goals, and if for some reason let's say the time bound one, say you want to do it in 12 weeks, but you miss that. Well, so what? It's not a failure. You're doing it. You may not, you can't always control, especially if there are other people involved. Some of that you can control your habits, but you may not be able to control their actions or the complete outcomes of those habits. So it may take you a little bit longer. It may be quicker, but it doesn't mean it's a fail. It's just that, I didn't estimate how long this would take as much, but we're going to keep on, and you're way more likely to hit that goal and to have that outcome in a timely manner if there's some sort of timetable for it or deadline. Otherwise, we end up procrastinating.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. Well, here's what we want to do in our time together that's remaining is we want to challenge you to set some SMART written goals in several key areas of your life. We're gonna label 6 of them, but we may riff on a few of these things, but these are not necessarily in any particular order. And I've heard it said too, the power of focus, and I believe in that. I certainly think that's a good principle. But some may say, well, you shouldn't try and focus on 6 different things. But here's my pushback to that when it comes to this conversation is that if we only focus on one of these areas, and let's say we get your physical health in great order, and you're living in the gym, and physically you're just a specimen and a beautiful model, but your marriage is falling apart and you're broke, like that's a very one-dimensional thing. And so I'm going to challenge you to set goals in every one of these areas, not just 1 or 2. And by the way, Les, I think as pastors, we tend, and maybe this is just because we're people, but as pastors, maybe we tend to lean heavily into a couple of these and then ignore certain others. And that might make more sense as I get to the bottom of the list. So I'm going to start with number one and just challenge you to set some goals in your spiritual development. And let me be clear, I'm not so much talking about your church work. I'm talking about your personal relationship with Jesus Christ and your own faith journey. What does that look like to level up and to grow deeper and to grow stronger in that arena of your life? Les, are you willing to share? Is there any goals
Sure.
that you've set in that area of your life this year?
Sure. And before I do that, another way to ask, it goes back to our original question. And that is, if somebody were to ask you a year from now, hey, how was your walk with the Lord this past year? What's your relationship with Jesus like compared to what it was this time last year? And you were to say, man, I've grown. I've never felt better about my relationship with the Lord. Why are you saying that? Like, what's happening to cause that to happen? So I'll just, for this conversation, Jon, I always read through the Bible each year. And I haven't not always done that, but the past several years, my wife and I have done that for lots of reasons. Even though we've read it a few times now, it's like you have, there's always new things that you see. And there's also, because of what I'm going through, I read things differently some seasons that I do in another one. So, I set as a goal a certain time to get up each day and spend time with the Lord that's intentional. I'll guard that time real carefully. I want to, just personally, I really need to improve my prayer life. There are some design times that I pray, but I'm talking about praying without ceasing. So another thing that'll do is when certain things come my way and are tempting to me, then I won't get real specific, but when we allow things into our mind, and then we start thinking that way, whether it has to do with language that creeps in, and I'm basically talking about matters that have to do with personal holiness. Again, those things don't just happen. So it's about what you start, what you stop, and what you continue to do.
Yeah, those are three questions you had mentioned before we started recording, and I think that's good. Like, and you can apply that filter to any one of these areas of life. What do I need to start doing this year? What do I need to stop? Which is equally important often to what we start. By the way, you and I were talking about this. As I look back over my goals that I had set in 2022, several of them were largely around stopping. What will I not be doing this time next year? And I forgot how much stuff I stopped in 2022. So that's a powerful thing to think about. And then what do I continue? What do I continue on in? So,
well, just for me personally, and this kind of gets over into the next area again too, because it's mental, but spiritual and mental for the follower of Christ bleed into one another. So for me, just personally, and I'll share this with you just so I can be accountable. I can go negative pretty quickly because I'm very opinionated and can be very dogmatic about the convictions that I have. And I know you don't struggle with that at all, but I certainly do. And I've determined that I'm just going to be more positive this year, and more grateful. And even today, just to give you an example, there were a few things that happened today that could have got me to that dark place pretty quickly that are beyond my control. And I even caught myself saying this, Jon. I caught myself saying to just kind of under my breath, man, is there anything that is actually that's going to go the way I want it to go these days? I mean, is anything going to work out the way I really want it? And I just stopped myself and I thought that's just a stupid statement. And then I began to remind myself of all the awesome things that are going on right now, and even actually going better than I would have anticipated. But those aren't the things that end up getting our attention, are they?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I only asked you to give one example in the spiritual realm. You gave me like 17. So you're so spiritual, Les. No, that's good. One thing that I said, I always have some kind of written goal around, my time in God's word. And Usually that has something to do with reading through the Bible in the year. Some years I've just done the New Testament, but this year, one thing I added, and I've done this in past years, but it's been a while since I've done this. And so one specific thing for me was I'm going to read through the book of Proverbs essentially 12 times in the year, because I'm going to do one chapter of Proverbs every day of the month and basically get through Proverbs 12 times. And with wisdom really being the focus and the desired outcome, I just desire more and more wisdom from God, and he's the ultimate source of that. And Proverbs is a great way to get that. So that's an example of, a goal, that a written goal in that area of our lives, spiritual. So the next one you already mentioned, Les, and that's mental. And what I mean by mental is not so much just in the arena of mental health, although we could go down that road, but I'm really talking about how do you develop your mind and the stuff that we bring into our mind. And I'm going to preach for just a minute, if it's okay. I'm going to step on a few toes probably. I don't know what the number is now. I heard a statistic, it's been a few years ago, that the average American watches somewhere between, it was like 25 and 35 hours per week of television. And I'm not mad about that. I'm not mad about television. I'm not mad about TV. But I'll say this. I heard someone else say this, and it's going to sound really abrasive. I wish I had been the one to say it, because it's brilliant. But I heard a coach say this one time, and he said, "What is it about your life that is so unattractive that you have to constantly go to the characters on TV shows to be inspired by their life and to be inspired by their story? What if you actually got inspired by your own story?" And again, I'm not mad at someone if you have a TV show that you like to watch, whatever. But when we consistently in our culture today binge watch multiple episodes and seasons, entire seasons of TV shows, and it's just from one to the next to the next, what does that say about our own life? Like, we're lacking that vision for our own life that we find excitement in other. That really resonated with me when he said that, because it's like, I'm excited about my life. I don't have time to watch 35 hours of television a week, because I'm building a life for myself. So what are you doing to build your mind in terms of the content you consume? There's great podcasts out there. There's great books to read. There's great people to follow on YouTube and learn from them. And it doesn't all have to be spiritual or church related. It can be in an area of a new hobby or a new skill that you want to develop, something you're interested in. How are you going to develop your mind this year? So what else would you add to that, Les?
I would just add that, I am not really a viewer of Survivor, but when you're on there, because I know you've applied, I'll break that pattern, and I will watch you on Survivor, just FYI.
You're going to have to fill the audience in. They don't know what you're talking about. So go ahead.
I just did. Go ahead. I mean, you've applied to be on Survivor. We're claiming it. We're saying that it's going to happen. And
there is a show called
know.
Survivor, and it's been on for years. They just finished their 43rd season, so it's been on for over 20 some years now. And I think I've watched every episode of every season. I love the show. I love the game element of it. I would love to play. And for the second time in my life here a few weeks ago, I applied to be on that show. So I agree with you, Les. This is my year. This is my moment.
It's going to happen.
Oh, I hope you're right. I'm terrified, honestly. If they called me today and said you're on the show, I would be.
Please. Oh, Lord, please let it happen. Please, Father, let it happen.
That causes a churning in my gut. It's a good churning, but it's a fear of like, I have to do this and I'm afraid. So I hope I get it.
But other than that, I'm with you, man.
One last thing, if we can take a few extra minutes. Have I ever told you the story about the first time I applied for Survivor, Les?
No.
All right, listen to this. I applied for Survivor, and months had gone by. I was going about my life. I used to drive a school bus for our local school, and it was the afternoon route. I was leaving the bus barn, heading to the school to pick up kids for the afternoon route. And as I'm pulling away, my phone rings. I answered. It was from an undisclosed number. So, and now I've learned you don't answer those calls, right? I don't answer unless I recognize the number, but this was before telemarketers got a hold of cell phone numbers. So I answered the phone call, and it was a guy saying he was from CBS. Is this Jon Sanders? Blah, blah, blah. Is this your information? And he had all my information, right? And he said, I'm so-and-so from Survivor casting. You've made it to the next round of selection for Survivor. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So so excited. He was like, we're going to fly you out to California. We're going to, you're in with this many people. We're going to send you an email. Is this your email address? This will have all the details for your airline stuff. I was so excited. When I got to the school, I called my wife and I said, yes, don't tell anybody. Because keep in mind, I'm full-time pastor at this point. So I'm already thinking, how am I going to be gone for 45 days of filming Survivor and get my church to be on board with that? And so don't tell anybody, but CBS just called. I'm confident if I get out there and meet that, they're going to like me. I'll be on the show. And so then I called my younger brother. I was like, he's a fan of the show. Do you want to be the family guy that comes and joins me when we get to that part of the game? He's all excited. I'm like, don't tell anybody. And I kept checking my email like every 5 minutes, and the email wasn't coming through that this guy told me was coming through. And so as the evening wore on, I started to have a bad feeling about this. But I was still excited, couldn't sleep that night. I was already thinking of how I was going to spend my $1 million when I win it. And in the morning, I woke up and I was like, I still don't have an email. Something's not right here. And I sat down at the breakfast table and my son said, hey, Dad, watch this video. You know what's coming, right? And he pulled up play on this video and I see him dialing the phone and I hear myself say, hello. And it was him. My son punked me and and my wife was in on it. So, the whole time I'm telling her, don't tell anybody. She's like, CBS didn't call you, Jon. Like they let me go all night thinking that I had made it.
I don't even know what to say about that.
I've been through therapy. I can talk about it now without crying. So it's a scar, not a wound. So anyway,
oh my goodness.
Thanks for bringing that up. But yeah, so I'm not, we say all that to say we're not opposed to TV watching. You watch TV, right, Les?
Yeah, that's right.
You don't watch 35 hours of it though, do you?
No, the principle's still true. That's right.
I bet you read more books than you watch TV. Is that true, Les?
No doubt.
There you go.
No doubt. Yeah. So own your life. Have a life that is better than any TV show.
Boom. Okay, that's all I was trying to say with all of that. So that's good. All right, let's go on to number 3. The third area of your life, we've got spiritual, we've got your mind, or how you're developing your mental status. The third would be relational. So anything that falls into that: family, spouse, marriage, kids, friends. And to be honest, I think as pastors, this is one that if we're not careful, we can let this one slide. We're so busy helping everyone else's family, marriage, that we lose our own, don't have friends of our own. And so what does it look like to set some goals this year that says we're not going to lose our marriage, we're not going to lose our kids to the culture, we're not going to be lonely and isolated even though we lead hundreds of people or 80 people a week. We're going to have actual true friends who know us beyond just being pastors. That'll preach.
Yeah, well, the last few years, our life, Paige's and my life have been coming at us really fast, just like the commercial says, and grandkids and kids living overseas and wanting to go to see them and trips. And we want to help our kids. We want to serve them and help make their goals and dreams come true. So we let a lot of things slide, and we've got a great relationship. But again, you can't passively sit by and expect these things just to happen. So to my sweet wife's credit, she brought her calendar in the other day. And if you've met my wife, Paige, just the fact that she even writes things down in the calendar, I just want to, I want to build a monument to that reality right there. So she brought her calendar into me and said, hey, let's put some stuff on the calendar. And so we did. We have some consistent times that we're going to keep to, go back to having those date times. That doesn't even mean that we necessarily go out to eat each time. We might just do something. We may just go to there's events around Birmingham, places around here that we can go and do. We kind of take for granted because they're right here, but they're really pretty neat. And so we'll do some things like that. And we put a couple of trips where it's not really for any big reason. There's not a conference, we're not going to keep grandkids. We just put a couple of things on the calendar just for us to get away and unplug some, which I appreciate, from her.
One of the goals I've set in that arena of my life this year is in the realm of marriage. I actually am signing up for kind of a coaching program for married men to not work on their marriage, but to work on themselves as husbands. And if I'm being transparent, I've got some leveling up to do in that area of my life. And so this year I'm actually doing something not that I haven't been doing anything about it, but intentional. Like this is an intentional goal and action that I'm taking with an expectation that I'm going to be a better husband in 2023 than I ever have been. So
I know we've got to
hear if my wife agrees with that or not, but.
Oh yeah, of course she does. Well, I was in a, I don't think you'd mind me sharing this because there were other people present, but I remember us being in our a group together and you sharing that you really wanted to be a hero for your family, and specifically for your wife. And so I know that you're very, very serious about meeting that goal and accomplishing that. But it doesn't happen by accident. So, man, good for you to get involved in that group. That's going to be some accountability. Here's something that I did, and I know we got a few more, but this is relevant. I was encouraged by a coach of mine to, along with some other people, to take our calendar for the past year and just go through it. We took several minutes to do it, to go through it and put the positive things, the things that we perceived as positive on one side of the page and the things that we perceived as negative on the other side of the page. And then we came back and talked about it. And to my surprise, it might not should have been, but it was, to my surprise, the things that really gave me the most joy, the biggest wins, the memorable things, the things that brought up positive emotions to me when I thought about them, they all had to do with people.
Well, that's interesting, especially coming from an introvert like you.
What now?
I said, especially coming from an introvert like you. That's pretty.
No kidding. That's awesome. Why I expected it to be, whatever, finishing a book or some sort of transaction or accomplishing a goal. But it wasn't, man. It wasn't at all. It was they were all had to do with people. And most of the time it was not new relationships. It was long time relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and just going back a quick second, what you had said, you captured the essence of my words, but the word was not hero. I don't want to be necessarily a hero to my family. It's, I want to be the greatest man that my husband, I don't have a husband. Let me go clearly on record. I don't have a husband. I want to be the greatest man that my wife and my children know, it's possible. And hopefully this resonates with some pastors. It's possible that you're in a place where you get some kudos and attaboys and, some pats on the back and affirmed by people for your gifting or the ability for you to speak or how you influence. And that's all fine and well, and praise God for that. But if your family were to say, yeah, that's not how we know him, like we know a different person than that, I don't want that at the end of the day. My podcast listeners, my coaching clients, they're probably not going to be front and center someday when I'm in a casket, and they're looking over my life. I want the people closest to me to say he really was a great man. Like he loved us well, he provided well, and he showed us God in how he lived his life. And again, that doesn't just happen by drifting in that current of complacency. If you want to end up there, there's some things. So I don't know that I can accomplish that goal in 2023. I think that's a yearly, day by day goal to keep living that out. But if I don't do some things and set some goals to get there, that's just wishful thinking. It's just a New Year's resolution, and intention doesn't deliver results, So yeah, I want to up level in that area of my life, especially. And what you said, Les, spot on. At the end of the day, it is about relationships. That's what all of this is about. So I know a lot of times on our podcast, we talk about business and income and the financial side of things, and we're all into that. But if it's void of relationships, man, it's empty and it's for nothing. So number 4, we're going to challenge you to set some smart written goals in the area of your career or vocation. And again, that's a lot of what we talk about on this show, so we won't riff too much on that right now. We want to help you level up there, by the way. So this is the year. Let's launch that business. Let's get that stream of income. Let's set some goals that will move the needle in your career and your vocation.
Yeah, just as far as the big picture goes, I would encourage you to take all the drama out of everything that you can and just do the math. Start there. Just do the, speaking of measurable, if your goal is you want to make more money this year, I mean, we can send you $1.
Yeah.
That would meet that goal. But what you want to do is decide what's going to move the needle, what's going to be a win for you. And then you can reverse engineer that. And if you put a number on it and it's reasonable, then it's just a matter of math, and at least to give you something to work toward.
Yeah, we work backwards from there. What does it take to hit that number? What do I need to do? How do I need to grow and change and level up and start, stop, continue, all of that to reach that number. So that's really good. The fifth area is the arena of your physical health. We think that's important. If you do all of this other stuff and ignore taking care of your own physical fitness, your sleep, your nutrition, again, you're gonna run out and burn out a lot sooner than if you treat your body well for the long haul. And as pastors, I'm not going to let us off the hook on this one. Generally, we got a lot of obese pastors that do not sleep well. They don't feed themselves. I mean, they feed themselves really well, but not good nutrition. It's just not healthy. And it's not a place we want to stay. And I say this not as someone who's arrived in that arena. I say this as someone who, this is an area of struggle for me. I have to be intentional about not just letting myself go physically, because I like to drift in this area of my life. I like to just kind of let the current take me where it will. But I see where that current leads, and I do not want to end up there. It leads to obesity, to lots of medication, to lots of symptoms, and an unhealthy life. And I'm not going there. God's given me a gift of health, and I want to, protect that and embrace that as much as possible. So maybe for you in 2023, that is taking up Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. How about that, Les?
How about it?
That's done that?
It might be. That's very measurable for sure.
Yeah.
And it could be. Here's the good news that if that's whatever your goal is in that area, man, we're living in a day that there is no lack of information in the land. There are very reasonable apps and resources, some of them even free, that track your physical health from day to day. And there's no need to be obsessed about that. But the fact is that most of us we're a long way from being obsessed over it. But just
Right.
to pay attention to it is, it's hard to help people when you're in the hospital, and it's certainly hard to help people if you've gone out into the afterlife.
Yep, absolutely. So that for some, that needs to be maybe priority number one this year, depending on where you're at. And then finally, number 6, the 6th area where we're challenging you to set some smart written goals would be in the area of your finances. What are some financial goals? And these are not just totally separate of one another. All of these in some ways combine together to make you the whole person that you are. So that's why I think it's helpful to look at the whole picture and set some goals in all of these arenas. Again, some of you, depending on where you are in your journey, might need to put a majority of your focus on just one or two areas to compensate for focus that has not been going there. And it's one last thing I'll say to that, Les, is it's amazing how whatever the area is, if you get some momentum in that area, it seems to affect movement in a lot of the others in many cases. You agree with that?
Yeah, it's whatever. It's a law of physics that object that's moving. It's a lot hard. Again, back to momentum. It may be difficult to get it started, but once it's moving, you've got some momentum, and that course is going to be a lot easier, a lot less friction, and you make those things habits, and then that's just what they are, and you don't have to think about it as much because they're just part of your habits. An example would be, John, if somebody has an unreasonable amount of debt, at least unreasonable for them, and they want to tackle that. A goal of not a very good one, but a goal for the year could be, well, I want to dump a lot of this debt. That's not a measurable, attainable, time-bound goal. It's just a wish,
Mm-hmm.
But if you say, hey, every paycheck or every month or every pay period or whatever it looks like, out of every bit of revenue that comes into my family, I'm going to take 1% or 2% or 5%, and it's going toward getting rid of my debt, then you will make progress on that goal. But it's the habit, not just the wishful thinking.
Yeah. One last thought we want to share before we sign off here, Les, is the thought of accountability and encouragement. I don't know what goes through people's mind when they hear the word accountability. They might think of that of help, and encouragement, and a community that is walking beside you and helping you, stay accountable and stay on track with the goals that you've set. And certainly that is something that we provide for our community, most specifically for those that are a part of our mastermind or for those that are going to be a part of a brand new thing we're rolling out in 2023, our Business Launch Academy. We're going to provide that accountability for people to be able to say, here's where I'm trying to get to. I might be scared. I might feel that I don't have all the skills. I feel like I'm lacking here or there. We're going to walk beside those people in those environments. We're already doing it and helping people achieve those results. So we would just invite you, if you're listening to this, to lean in, whatever that looks like to you, to lean in to this community and let us walk beside you for a season, however long you need us to be there to help get you to the level that you're trying to get to. Well, hey, thanks for watching this episode of the Entre Pastors Podcast. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can be notified every time we release a new episode. If you'd like to get connected to other pastors who are learning to think, act, and thrive as prosperous entrepreneurs, then we invite you to check us out on Facebook. Just search for the Entre Pastors Connect group, answer a few of our simple questions there, and we'd love to include you in the conversations. And if you're really ready to go to the next level, then we invite you to join our Entre Pastors membership community. When you become a monthly subscriber, you will receive access to courses, exclusive community, and coaching that will help you along in your own Entre Pastors journey. If there's anything else we can do to serve you, please visit us at entrepastors.com, and we will do our best to serve you there. God bless everybody. See you soon.